Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. Gaza ceasefire begins after Hamas releases the names of 3 women hostages to be released. TikTok stops working in the US ahead of a ban that takes effect on Sunday. Prime Minister Modi highlights India's achievements in space in his first radio address of 2025. And US President-elect Donald Trump reaches Washington, D.C. for Monday's inauguration. Mediator Qatar on Sunday confirmed the start of a truce between Israel and Hamas. It said some of the initial 3 hostages to be freed hold foreign citizenship. The ceasefire took effect on Sunday after a nearly 3-hour delay, pausing a 15-month-old war that has brought devastation and seismic political change to West Asia. Hamas named 3 Israeli female hostages to be freed in Gaza. Their names are Romi Gonen, Doron Steinbrecher and Emily Damari. Meanwhile, Israel also said it received the list of the hostages and Israeli security personnel were checking details, adding that it has begun notifying the families of the hostages to be released via representatives of the Israeli military. Celebrations have erupted all over the region after a ceasefire in the conflict-ridden territory came into effect Sunday morning local time. The ceasefire was announced more than 2 hours later than scheduled because of a dispute between Israel and Hamas over naming the captives to be freed. Several locals gathered in front of the Al-Aqsa hospital in Deir al-Bala to celebrate the ceasefire. Waving flags, chanting slogans, and many of the displaced people were seen piled up on trucks as they began returning home. Thousands of displaced Gazans carrying tents, clothes and personal belongings began heading to their homes Sunday after the long-awaited ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect after more than 15 months of conflict.
Today, the whole world is a witness that today we will return to the north, to Sazaya, Zaitun and Gaza. And tomorrow, God willing, we will return to every inch of the Palestinian land. Tomorrow we will return to Lod, Ramlah, Jaffa and Haifa. Tomorrow, God willing, we will return to Jerusalem, celebrating and cheering. No one can defeat us and no one can beat us. We are steadfast and patient, God willing.
Meanwhile, in another development, Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir's party announced on Sunday it was leaving the country's ruling coalition in protest at what it called the scandalous ceasefire agreement in Gaza. In a statement, Jewish Power Party called the ceasefire deal a capitulation to Hamas. It denounced what it called the release of hundreds of murderers and the renouncing of the Israeli military's achievements in the war in Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu retains a slim majority in the Israeli parliament despite their resignation. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged Israel to entirely withdraw from Lebanese territory by the deadline of 27th of January. This came as he visited the Lebanese border town of Nakhura, home to the headquarters of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, which was recently vacated by Israeli forces. The Secretary General called on both parties and those with influence to ensure commitments under the ceasefire are realized and use the deal to address outstanding issues.
It is now essential to see the withdrawal of the Israel Defense Forces from Lebanese territory and the simultaneous deployment of the Lebanese armed forces across southern Lebanon in the agreed time frame. Moreover, Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected, and the Lebanese state must have full control of weapons through Lebanese territory. This is a central tenet of Resolution 1701.
The UN chief also noted the Israel Defense Forces' phased withdrawal and increased deployment of Lebanese armed forces south of the Litani River.
On the other hand, in the past 40 days alone, UNIFIL peacekeepers uncovered over 100 unguarded weapons and ammunition caches, promptly sharing their locations with the Lebanese armed forces. Resolution 1701 is clear. The area between the Blue Line and Litani River must be free of all armed personnel, assets and weapons other than those of the government of Lebanon and UNIFIL.
The genesis of the Israel-Hamas conflict dates back to a long time in history. However, the Israel hostage crisis of 7th October 2023 triggered the conflict between Israel and Hamas. The next report gives you a brief timeline of what happened between 7th October 2023 and the present time leading to this ceasefire deal.
The Israel-Hamas war has had a long history. However, the hostage attacks of October 7, 2023 triggered the current conflict. Let's now tell you the timeline. October 7, 2023, Hamas-led terrorists storm into southern Israel from Gaza and rampage through communities. Retaliatory airstrikes on Gaza begin, along with the total siege. October 8, 2023, Lebanon's Hezbollah fires on Israel, leading to sustained hostilities. October 13, 2023, Israel tells residents of Gaza City to move south. October 19, 2023, a US Navy warship intercepts missiles and drones launched from Yemen towards Israel. October 21, 2023, 8 trucks allowed through the Rafah border crossing from Egypt into Gaza. October 27, 2023, Israel launches its ground offensive in Gaza. November 15th, Israeli troops enter Gaza's biggest hospital, Al-Shifa, after a siege of several days. November 21st, Israel and Hamas announce a 7-day truce and release of around half the hostages, but war resumes on December 1st. December 4th, Israeli forces launch their first big ground assault in southern Gaza towards the main southern city, Khan Yunis. April 1st, 2024, Iran's embassy compound in Damascus is hit by a suspected Israeli airstrike that kills several military officers, including a top general. Tehran responds 2 weeks later by firing hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel. May 6, 2024, Hamas says it has accepted a proposal for a ceasefire, but Israel said it had not agreed to that text. June 23, 2024, Netanyahu says the phase of intense fighting against Hamas in Gaza is coming to an end, but that the war will not finish until Hamas no longer controls the enclave. August 1st, 2024, Israel's military says it killed Mohammad Deif, Hamas military chief, in an airstrike on July 13th. September 17, 2024, Israel detonates thousands of booby-trapped pager communication devices used by Hezbollah in Lebanon, injuring hundreds of its members. September 28, 2024, an Israeli airstrike in Beirut kills Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, one of many strikes against the group's senior leadership. October 5th, 2024, Israeli forces launch major anti-Hamas operation in northern Gaza, focused on Jabalia refugee camp. October 16, 2024, Israel kills Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar in a shootout in Rafah. November 27, 2024, Israel and Hezbollah agree on a ceasefire in Lebanon. On the same day, rebels in Syria launch an offensive that will quickly topple President Bashar al-Assad, a major ally of Hezbollah and its Iranian backer. December 2nd, 2024, US President-elect Donald Trump says there will be hell to pay in the Middle East if hostages in Gaza are not freed before his January 20 inauguration. January 15th this year, negotiators reach a deal for a ceasefire in the Gaza war between Israel and Hamas after 15 months of conflict that has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians and inflamed West Asia. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, joining me is my colleague Akshay Dongre. Akshay, what's the latest you can share with us on the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal?
Well, Ramesh, we saw earlier in the morning when there was even a 2-hour delay to the implementation of the ceasefire. The hostilities had resumed. In fact, we saw Israel striking on Hamas targets in Gaza, which also resulted into casualties. And even though people had started celebrating earlier, it was not an end. A mere announcement of ceasefire was not an end to the conflict. It had to be implemented on the ground, and that is why Israel had refused to implement the ceasefire without getting to know the names of the hostages that were to be released today. Now that the names have been shared with the Israeli counterparts, the implementation of ceasefire has officially started, because that was the only logjam there was as far as the ceasefire is concerned. So we can see changes happening on the ground. In fact, the kind of demands that are now being raised even by the United Nations for Israel to completely withdraw from Lebanon as well is a good sign for that matter as far as the implementation of the ceasefire on the ground is concerned. So it's a good sign as far as the Middle East is concerned, the West Asian region is concerned. So there are certainly some positive news coming in, especially to the displaced Palestinians who are now already who have started to move back to their homes. They're steadily going back to places where they belong. But the devastation is such that Gaza will require a lot of rebuilding. And that will come only after a permanent ceasefire is announced. So it's too soon to say that peace has prevailed in the West Asia.
Right, we leave it there. Akshay, thank you. Akshay Dongre reporting there on the latest developments in the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Right, joining me is Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti. He is a former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, a former Indian Ambassador to Thailand, who's also served as the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Indian Embassy in Israel in the late 1990s. Ambassador, welcome to DD India NewsHour, and glad you could join us on the weekend in particular. Now, can the world breathe a little easy now that the ceasefire has indeed begun?
Well, for temporarily, yes, because the ceasefire will ensure that the displaced people in Gaza can go back to their homes and the hostages come back, which has been a pressure point domestically for the Netanyahu government. And as you know, that one very right-wing coalition partner has left the government because though they didn't have enough seats to bring down the Netanyahu government, who still enjoys a slim majority. There have been various, factors in this ceasefire agreement. One, of course, is fatigue and with the war, and then, of course, the coming of Trump, who threatened Hamas that if they don't do a deal, they'll be held to pay, etc., and things like that. So I think these are the factors, and that have, and Iran too is not particularly now in a position to help its proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. Hezbollah is under pressure also within southern Lebanon, and I think the Israelis, after the ceasefire deal and some hostages are back, when temperatures cool down, they might also withdraw from southern Lebanon and hand it over to the Lebanese army. But these are all, we have to wait and see what will happen. But by and large, I think everybody has welcomed the ceasefire, and because the carnage that has happened, which began on October 7th, with the killing of 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians and unarmed, including women and children. It was a terrorist act of a very, horrendous proportion that the Hamas conducted against Israel. And the result, we all know what has happened, because Israel is not a country which will sit quietly back and absorb such attacks. And I think Hamas knew very well that what the consequences will be. But whatever reasons that they must have, rationally would have used to justify those attacks, of course, now has led to this situation where I think 50,000 Palestinians are dead. I don't know, millions are homeless. And so you can see that Palestinians also are welcoming the ceasefire. So there is a lot of fatigue with this war. Mm-hmm. That is one of the reasons why you see the ceasefire today.
Ambassador, the jury is still out on whether the ceasefire will indeed hold, and also whether Israel and the Hamas can progress to the subsequent phases or stages of the three-phase deal as is being described. But post-war management of Gaza remains a sticking point. Would Hamas, you think, will remain a part of the ruling dispensation in Gaza in one way or another?
I'm not so sure that Hamas will, but they might play a backroom role. But who will then, govern Gaza is the issue. Whether the Palestinian Authority will be brought in from the West Bank into Gaza to do a deal, or will there be some kind of a compromise and coalition with Hamas? It all depends, because backroom dealings will happen. There'll be pressures on both sides to sort of do a deal. And once Israel leaves Gaza, what kind of posture the IDF will maintain, whether inside Gaza or outside along the borders. The ceasefire, of course, includes withdrawal of the IDF. Mm-hmm. And then if that happens, then would IDF remain in position, adopt a posture along the border where they can go in quickly to do whatever they want if there is any further aggravation that they perceive from Hamas. So I think Hamas may not be now the sole authority in Gaza, but we'll have to share that authority with perhaps the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank.
Right. Do you also see a Trump imprimatur on the deal? Did Trump prevail over Netanyahu? Did Trump succeed where Biden failed? And if so, is Trump rightly claiming credit for the deal?
Well, that's politics, and Trump is claiming credit for the deal, but ultimately it is still the Biden administration which was working out the nuts and bolts behind the scenes. And there was, of course, meetings in Qatar. Qatar has always been, punching above its weight in this matter with their sort of checkbook diplomacy on both sides, particularly one side, and so they were also part of this. So they provided a facilitation like they did, with the Taliban, and then both sides met in Doha and they worked out and hashed out this deal. So I think we should now await the implementation, and I hope it goes on smoothly and there are several phases, as you mentioned, and they can move on to the next phase, because it is a limited ceasefire in terms of the number of days. And if after that something happens, Israel will retain the right to again, attack Hamas or whatever they want to do in Gaza.
Ambassador, I have a couple of questions more to ask of you. One, zooming out, if you take a step back and look at the region of West Asia as a whole, Hamas has been dealt a heavy blow. Hezbollah has been subdued in Lebanon. Bashar al-Assad has fled Syria. Israel has extended its control over the Golan Heights. And Iran has been weakened like never before. Is it a new West Asia that Trump would be dealing with? And is that good or bad for the world?
Well, I think whatever you just mentioned would, if it leads to less provocation and less, conflict in the region, it would be welcomed by everybody. And I think when people can get back to their homes and get back to their work, and the economic hit that has been caused, including in Israel. After all, Israel is a country where everybody is a soldier, in the sense that they do compulsory military training, and they can be, many of the reservists, as they are called, when they go back to civilian life, were recalled to fight in this war. And so I think, and that hits the economy because they leave their workplace and spend and go back to the IDF and get deployed in this war. So I think Israel too has suffered a lot in terms of its economy, and it needs to build back. So I think it should help everybody if temperatures are down. And but one never knows. In the Middle East, or as we say, the West Asian region is very volatile, and with so many unsolved and unresolved issues that continue since the Palestine mandate was given to the British and the Balfour Declaration of 1917.
And finally, Ambassador Chakrabarti, looking at these developments from a New Delhi perspective, what are India's stakes in West Asia? How would India react to the new Middle East that's shaping up right before our very own eyes?
Well, India is not really in backing one side or the other in the sense of in the Middle East, and India basically is urging peace as it has done in Ukraine, for example, because it is not in India's interest to have this region, which is a major supplier of oil, and with which India has huge economic interests, and millions of Indians work in the Gulf. So India is a huge stakeholder in the peace and prosperity of this region, because it helps India. And India's main focus, we have a laser-like focus on economic development, because that is where we want to go, take the country to higher levels of development in all domains. So I think, and disturbing, situations or instability in any region near India where we have a lot of stakes, or any region away from India where India has huge stakes in terms of economy and trade, is not good for us. So India should be welcoming this ceasefire wholeheartedly, and should do, and if possible, enable it to succeed.
All right. On that note, Ambassador Chakrabarti, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad, and also for making time for us on the weekend. Appreciate it. Right, moving on, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump arrived at Washington Dulles International Airport on Saturday for an inauguration celebration marking his return to power that's been upended by record cold temperatures. Trump arrived in an Air Force plane sent by outgoing President Joe Biden to his home in Palm Beach, Florida, where the Republican had worked on his transition to power after winning the 5th November election over Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump is due to hold a rally with supporters inside the Capital One Arena in downtown Washington, D.C. on Sunday, the eve of his inauguration, as well as a post-inauguration event Monday afternoon local time. A blast of frigid weather forecast for Monday prompted Trump to move the inaugural ceremonies from the iconic west front of the U.S. Capitol building to indoors in the Capitol Rotunda and the parade down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capital One Arena. Donald Trump and his family watched a fireworks display from the Trump National Golf Club in Sterling, Virginia, ahead of his inauguration. Elvis Presley impersonator Leo Days serenaded the incoming president and first lady ahead of a reception for about 500 guests and fireworks display. An aide posted a video on social media showing the singer crooning as the Trumps watched. And now we tell you Trump's big promises as he is all set to be president of the US with his inauguration on Monday, that is 20th January. And these promises are: plans largest deportation operation in US history, vows to end birthright citizenship despite constitutional protections, promises an end to devastating inflation crisis, tariffs and big cuts to taxes. He plans to elevate crypto as a policy priority. Trump vows to propose 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada. He is also threatening 10% tariffs on Chinese imports over fentanyl components. Now, some see this as negotiation tactics, but risks trade conflicts as well. He has hinted at pardons for Capitol riot participants. And Trump claims credit for ceasefire brokered by the Biden administration. Trump is pledging to end the Russia-Ukraine war, though specifics remain vague still. Cut climate regulations, push for expanded oil and gas drilling also on his agenda. Trump also plans to repeal Biden's green policies, including EV tax credits. His vow to end transgender rights in schools and the military. He is promising to cut funding for schools teaching critical race theory. Now, the news: TikTok stopped working in the United States late on Saturday and disappeared from Apple and Google app stores ahead of a law that takes effect Sunday, requiring the shutdown of the app used by 170 million US nationals. Other apps owned by ByteDance, including video editing app CapCut and lifestyle social app Lemonade, were also offline and unavailable in the US app stores as of late Saturday. We have more in the next report.
Following a number of anxious days of ambiguity for the app before Sunday, when a ban on TikTok is set to take effect in the US, the app was shut down. Owned by China's ByteDance told its users that a law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US and it is unavailable for now. Over the years, TikTok transformed from being a viral app to a US security threat. It all began in 2016 when ByteDance launched Douyin, an app for sharing short videos in China, and then next year it launched TikTok for international market. By 2020, TikTok became one of the most downloaded apps globally, and that led to its banning in United States when then President Donald Trump signed an order citing security risks. Though legal challenges delayed ban enforcement in the US, meanwhile, concerns grew over addiction and spying risks as TikTok hit 1 billion users globally in 2021. In the meantime, ByteDance started hosting US data with Oracle but faced continued scrutiny. Then came the news of Joe Biden signing a law in 2024 requiring TikTok's sale to a non-Chinese entity. Country's Supreme Court also upheld law this January only, citing national security concerns. TikTok is pinning its hope on President-elect Trump, who may intervene and bring back life to TikTok in the United States. Now, new downloads and updates will be blocked, though existing users can still access the app, but it will eventually become unusable without updates. Some users are turning to VPNs to bypass restrictions. Company's 7,000 US employees face uncertainty with fear of layoffs due to the ban. Concerned users are exploring alternatives with the Chinese social media platform Xiaohongshu or Little Red Book, seeing a surge in popularity, even becoming the most downloaded app on the US Apple Store this week. With just days to go, the fate of TikTok in the US remains uncertain. All eyes are on Washington and President-elect Trump to see if the app can survive the legal storm. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.
Meanwhile, India had banned 59 applications, including TikTok and Share It, in the year 2020, citing threats to national security and sovereignty. The ban covered a variety of applications from e-commerce to gaming, social media, browsers, instant messaging and file sharing. Still to come on DD India NewsHour. 60 killed in Colombia guerrilla violence. ASEAN tells Myanmar junta that peace, not election, is the priority. An angry protester storms South Korea court after it extends President Yoon's detention.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The United States has been battling massive wildfires that have ravaged Los Angeles and killed at least 27 people. The fires have ripped through the United States' second largest city, reducing whole communities to scorched rubble and leaving thousands without a home. Officials are warning of incoming dangerous winds that could whip up the blazes further. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who has sharply criticized California's response to devastating wildfires, is likely to pay a visit to the area next week after his inauguration. The fires have destroyed more than 10,000 structures in the residential enclaves of Pacific Palisades and Altadena. Dozens of pilots from around the United States and Canada rushed to Los Angeles to drop fire retardant and water on fires encircling the city.
That afternoon, about right when we got here, is when we realized that this wasn't a normal fire. With the wind speeds, the rate of spread, and the amount of destruction just showing up on scene, and we knew we were going to be busy. It was going to be a dangerous rate of spread.
The death toll from attacks by ELN rebels in Colombia has risen to 60 in the country's Catatumbo region near the border with Venezuela. The Ombudsman's office posted on social media that about 60 people have died violently, 32 were kidnapped and hundreds were displaced because of a conflict in recent days between the leftist National Liberation Army, or the ELN, and the now demobilized Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. President Gustavo Petro last week accused the ELN of committing a war crime in the attacks and suspended the peace talks with the group. The ELN, in a statement on Saturday, accused a faction of the FARC of having initiated the conflict by killing civilians and committing other aggressions. The FARC faction did not publicly respond to the allegation. On Friday, it said it had begun withdrawing its units to prevent the violence from escalating. Shifting focus to the Indo-Pacific now, Malaysia's Foreign Minister Mohammed Hassan kicked off the nation's chairpersonship of ASEAN by hosting the Foreign Ministers' retreat in Langkawi on Sunday. In his opening remarks, Hassan said the theme of Malaysia's leadership would be inclusivity and sustainability, highlighting the challenges posed by the climate crisis. ASEAN's centrality revolves over potential challenges, committed to addressing regional issues with Beijing's assertiveness in the South China Sea. The region is a conduit for about $3 trillion of annual shipborne trade, has been the site of heated standoffs in the past 2 years between ASEAN member the Philippines and China, a major source of the region's trade and investment.
ASEAN's strength lies in the way it represents an entirely different model of engagement. One where shared decision-making transcends differences in governance. It is one where influence is not measured only by military might or economic power, but by the ability to foster dialogue, to encourage cooperation, and to build the trust necessary for global peace and prosperity.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations has told Myanmar's military government its plan to hold an election amid an escalating civil war should not be its priority, and urged the junta to start a dialogue and end hostilities immediately. Malaysia also announced the appointment of former diplomat Othman Hashim as a special envoy on the crisis in Myanmar, where the United Nations says humanitarian needs are at alarming levels, with nearly 20 million people, more than a third of the country's population, needing help.
We also want to know what they have in mind. One thing that we know, that want to have election, but we told them election is not a priority at the moment. The priority now is to ceasefire, and everybody have to stand down. See, that is important. And access to all segments on the humanitarian aid in Myanmar. Very simple. And I don't think that is a very difficult task for them to fulfill.
In more news from the Indo-Pacific, dozens of angry demonstrators stormed a South Korea court on Sunday to show support for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Police arrested at least 46 people who were protesting outside the entrance gate of the court. Now, this comes after court announced its decision to extend Yoon's detention for up to 20 days. The detained President Yoon Suk-yeol expressed shock and frustration at the violent incident. He called for people to express their opinions in a peaceful manner while asking police to show tolerance, this according to his lawyer. Yoon became the first sitting South Korean president to be arrested, as he faces allegations of insurrection related to his short-lived 3rd December declaration of martial law that has plunged the country into political turmoil. Right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. Preparation is in full swing in Davos as the World Economic Forum is set to kick off on Monday. Business and political leaders around the world will gather in the Swiss mountain resort from 20th to the 24th of January. Topics on the Davos agenda span mounting global geopolitical and economic uncertainty, trade tensions, climate goals, and artificial intelligence. In Hong Kong, a new AI-powered English learning system with free access was launched at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology on Sunday. AI learning system will evaluate students' English performance and provide personalized feedback. The people of Greenland demanding their right to decide the future of the Arctic island, as US President-elect Donald Trump expressed his desire to acquire the mineral-rich island. The majority of its tiny population of 56,000 have rejected Trump's suggestion. Greenland is the world's largest island and a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. Circus artists from around the world gathered at International Circus Festival of Monte Carlo in Monaco. Princess Stephanie of Monaco, who is the president of the festival, attended the event. The annual circus festival will continue till the 26th of January. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed countrymen in the 118th edition of his monthly Mann Ki Baat program, touching upon various topics and achievements of the country. He urged all to work towards making India the best nation. Here's a report.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed countrymen in the first episode of the year 2025 of his monthly program Mann Ki Baat. The program takes place on the last Sunday of every month. However, this time, Mann Ki Baat was broadcast a week before on the third Sunday instead, as on next Sunday, India will be celebrating its Republic Day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tribute to the personalities involved in making of the country's constitution.
इस बार का गणतंत्र दिवस बहुत विशेष है। ये भारतीय गणतंत्र की 75वीं वर्षगांठ है। इस वर्ष संविधान लागू होने के 75 साल हो रहे हैं। मैं संविधान सभा के उन सभी महान व्यक्तित्वों को नमन करता हूं, जिन्होंने हमें हमारा पवित्र संविधान दिया। संविधान सभा के दौरान अनेक विषयों पर लंबी लंबी चर्चाएं हुई। वो चर्चाएं संविधान सभा के सदस्यों के विचार, उनकी वो वाणी हमारी बहुत बड़ी धरोहर है।
PM Modi paid special attention to the stupendous achievements by Indian scientists in the field of space.
साथियों, कुछ दिन पहले हमारे वैज्ञानिकों ने स्पेस सेक्टर में ही एक और बड़ी उपलब्धि हासिल की। हमारे साइंटिस्ट ने सैटेलाइट्स की स्पेस डॉकिंग कराई है। जब अंतरिक्ष में 2 स्पेसक्राफ्ट कनेक्ट किए जाते हैं तो इस प्रक्रिया को स्पेस डॉकिंग कहते हैं। यह तकनीक अंतरिक्ष में स्पेस स्टेशन तक सप्लाई भेजने और क्रू मिशन के लिए अहम है। भारत ऐसा चौथा देश बना है जिसने ये सफलता हासिल की है।
PM Narendra Modi also acknowledged the fact that the initiative of Startup India completed 9 successful years and how the campaign has reached every nook and corner of the country.
जब यह सुनने को मिलता है कि अंबाला, हिसार, कांगड़ा, चेंगलपट्टू, बिलासपुर, ग्वालियर और वाशिम जैसे शहर स्टार्टअप्स के सेंटर बन रहे हैं तो मन आनंद से भर जाता है। नागालैंड जैसे राज्य में पिछले साल स्टार्टअप्स के रजिस्ट्रेशन में 200% से अधिक की वृद्धि हुई है।
PM also drew parallels between Grand Kumbh Mela in Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh and South India's Pushkaram. He termed Kumbh as the festival of unity in diversity.
कुंभ का आयोजन हमें ये भी बताता है कि कैसे हमारी परंपराएं पूरे भारत को एक सूत्र में बांधती हैं। उत्तर से दक्षिण तक मान्यताओं को मानने के तरीके एक जैसे ही हैं। एक तरफ प्रयागराज, उज्जैन, नासिक और हरिद्वार में कुंभ का आयोजन होता है। वैसे ही दक्षिण भूभाग में गोदावरी, कृष्णा, नर्मदा और कावेरी नदी के तटों पर पुष्करम होते हैं। ये दोनों ही पर्व हमारी पवित्र नदियों से, उनकी मान्यताओं से जुड़े हुए हैं।
The Indian Prime Minister concluded this edition of Mann Ki Baat broadcast by encouraging all to continue working in their own ways to contribute to make India the best nation in the world. Antra Sinha for DD India.
Outgoing US Ambassador to India Eric Garcetti and his family met with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Sunday. The US envoy highlighted the India-US relations. He said they've reached new heights because of the efforts of Prime Minister Modi and President Biden. Garcetti expressed his gratitude to the Prime Minister and the people of India for their warm hospitality during his visit to India. He emphasized that the US-India partnership has become indispensable and it will continue to grow stronger in the coming years. India's Home Minister and Minister of Cooperation Amit Shah was the chief guest at the 20th Foundation Day celebrations of the Indian National Disaster Response Force in Vijayawada in the southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh on Sunday. On the occasion, the minister and along with Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu inaugurated the 10th Battalion of the NDRF campus and the NIDM Southern campus at Konda Pavaluru, Ganavaram Mandal as part of the NDRF's Foundation Day celebrations. Addressing the event, the minister highlighted how NDRF has made India stand as a global leader in terms of disaster management. He said the Narendra Modi government is dedicated towards disaster management.
मैं आज विश्वास से कह रहा हूं, एनडीएमए ने बनाई हुई नीतियों को जमीन पर एनडीआरएफ ने उतारा है और इसके कारण डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के मामले में आज भारत ग्लोबल लीडर बनकर बाहर आया है। नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के काम के लिए कितनी गंभीर है। 12वें वित्त आयोग में 12,500 करोड़ रुपया डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के लिए इंगित किया था। 14th फाइनेंस कमीशन ने 61,000 करोड़ रुपया 61,000 करोड़ रुपीस को इंगित करने का काम किया है।
January 19 marks a significant day for India's disaster management framework, the 20th raising day of the National Disaster Response Force or the NDRF. Established in 2006, the NDRF has become a global leader in disaster response, saving countless lives and standing as a symbol of courage and resilience. Here's a closer look at its remarkable journey.
With the motto of Aapda Sadaiv Sarvatra, meaning disaster service always and everywhere, the National Disaster Response Force has stood as a beacon of hope during the gravest of challenges. Operating under the National Disaster Management Authority, the NDRF was established on January 19, 2006, after the Disaster Management Act of 2005 came into effect.
We are committed to ensure that there is zero loss to human life during any disaster, and this is a team effort. So we are collaborating with the concerned state governments, their SDRF. In some governments, the fire service is doing the job. Somewhere, some other department is handling the issues. So we train them. We also train the home guard, the other volunteers.
What began with 8 battalions has now grown to 16, with specialized teams comprising engineers, technicians, electricians, medical staff, and dog squads. Spread across 68 strategic locations, including 28 regional response centers and 24 tactical pre-positioning locations, the NDRF ensures a rapid and efficient response to crisis. The success of NDRF lies in rigorous training, teamwork, and the adoption of advanced technology. The Disaster Response Force is constantly evolving to meet new challenges. Since its inception, the NDRF has saved over 150,000 lives and evacuated more than 800,000 individuals from disaster-stricken areas. Their international missions, including Nepal earthquake and the Turkey earthquake, have won global recognition for India's disaster response capabilities. As the NDRF celebrates its 20th Raising Day, it reaffirms its commitment to being a global leader in disaster management, embodying its values of professionalism, selflessness, and dedication.
We are encouraging innovation within our force, and I am very proud to say that many of our rescuers have made excellent innovations, and we have analyzed those innovations, and once we have approved those innovations, we have circulated to all our force so that they can be replicated elsewhere. And we are also ensuring that technology, we should be the best force within the country regarding the technology which is available anywhere in the world.
The NDRF's commitment to disaster response and resilience has truly set a global benchmark as they celebrate 2 decades of excellence. Their journey inspires us all to build a safer and more prepared nation. Akshay Dongre, DD India.
India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar concluded his 3-day official visit to Lakshadweep on Sunday. Before his departure, the Vice President interacted with the beneficiaries of various central government schemes in Lakshadweep, including PM Kisan, KCC, Self-Help Group and others at the Agati Airport. He expressed great happiness that under the current administrator's leadership, the people of Lakshadweep are progressing towards self-reliance. India's Minister for Railways, Information and Broadcasting and Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, will be participating in the World Economic Forum 2025 at Davos. His visit highlights India's commitment to driving inclusive growth and transformative development.
In the World Economic Forum at Davos, there is a lot of interest in understanding our thought process, Prime Minister's economic policy, about the digital transformation, about the way India has created a new digital architecture under Digital India program of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, and also on the way the technology has been democratized by our Honorable Prime Minister's Digital India program. There is a lot of interest on this. There will be detailed discussion in the World Economic Forum about the inclusive growth, about the investment in social, physical and digital infrastructure, and on democratizing technology.
The Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2025, a global mobility show, is ongoing in India's capital, New Delhi, from the 17th to the 22nd of January. India's Minister of Heavy Industries and Steel, H.D. Kumaraswamy, visited the expo on Saturday. During his visit, the minister inaugurated exhibitions of several companies and toured various stalls, gaining insights into their products, innovations and technologies. He also engaged in discussions with representatives about the progress and future prospects of various organizations in the mobility sector. The world's largest spiritual gathering, the Mahakumbh Mela, is underway in the Prayagraj city of Uttar Pradesh. On Sunday, founder and trainer of a meditation and yoga center in Italy, Mahi Guruji, along with his followers, made a courtesy call on Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath in Lucknow. All these women returned from Prayagraj Mahakumbh, recited Ramayana, Shiva Tandav and several bhajans in front of the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Right, and now take a look at what else is making news in India. A court in Mumbai on Sunday granted the city police 5-day custody of Shariful Islam Shehzad, who has been arrested for allegedly breaking into the home of actor Saif Ali Khan and injuring him and his staff during a burglary attempt. Shehzad was arrested by the Mumbai police on Sunday morning from Thane's labour camp area. The Indian government has appointed senior IPS officer Gyanendra Pratap Singh as the Director General of the Central Reserve Police Force. Gyanendra Pratap Singh is a 1991 batch IPS officer from the Assam Meghalaya cadre. He will serve as the CRPF chief until further orders or until his superannuation in January of 2027. The Himalayan region of Bhalesa area in Doda, Jammu and Kashmir has been blanketed in a fresh layer of snow, turning it into a stunning winter wonderland. The snowfall has enhanced the beauty of the region, attracting visitors and nature enthusiasts. To sports news now. American world number 3 Coco Gauff beat Switzerland's Belinda Bencic 5-7, 6-2, 6-1 to reach the quarterfinals of the Australian Open in Melbourne on Sunday. Gauff lost the first set of the year to open her contest against Bencic. The 27-year-old Swiss was put on the back foot when Goff came out firing. She forced the decider by winning the second set. Goff continued to apply pressure and Bencic crumbled to lose the third set and the match. Goff is to face Spain's Paula Badosa, who reached the last 8 for the first time by beating Olga Danilovic 6-1, 7-6. Badosa had to rally from 5-2 down in the second set to get past the Serbian in straight sets and reach a second straight Grand Slam quarterfinals. Tommy Paul was the first man to book his spot in the last 8 with a 6-1, 6-1, 6-1 win over Spain's Alejandro Forquina, who looked exhausted after back-to-back 5-setters in the last 2 rounds. Alexander Zverev booked an Australian Open quarterfinals clash against Tommy Paul after surviving a mid-match wobble to oust France's Hugo Humbert. The second seed was in imperious form. He raced past Humbert 6-1, 2-6, 6-3, 6-2 after losing the second set. The 31st Zhejiang International Dinosaur Lantern Show kicked off in Zhejiang, southwestern China's Sichuan province. The event came as part of the celebrations for the upcoming Spring Festival. The Lantern Show this year features 12 groups of super large light sets, captivating interest of many. And that's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.